Hi everyone and welcome to today's broadcast about jaw tension. I've been meaning to do this one for quite a while since quite a few of you have asked me about it in the past, so here we go. Maybe just a general sort of disclaimer. If you suffer from pain in your jaw or you feel that what you're experiencing during singing is maybe that tiny bit out of the ordinary, it's never wrong to see your dentist about it, and the dentist would be the right person to see if you feel you're grinding your teeth at night, if you have TMJ pain. So basically, better safe than sorry, see someone about it if you're not sure about it. So why do we talk about jaw tension, or why is jaw tension so important and so destructive for singers as well? I mean, you notice it yourself. You're talking all day, you're speaking a lot, you're singing, and your jaw needs to be fairly loose for that. Unless it isn't, then after a while of speaking or singing, you will start to feel some sort of pain, tension, discomfort, which can vary from really, really light and just slightly there to really quite severe, or it can be so bad that it's actually not linked to what you're doing in terms of singing at all, but that you already wake up in the morning with pain in your jaw, for instance. So as I said, in those cases, please see your dentist about it. A general assessment I always like to do with my students is what do you think? How many fingers can you actually fit in your mouth? And after you're doing that guess, you actually do it. And a lot of people tend to be surprised that they really overestimate how many fingers they can actually fit in. That's not to mean you should have the ability to fit your whole fist in your mouth or something like that. But I would say if you can do this, that's good. If you can do this, that's even better. So 2 to 3 fingers should be possible without actually feeling any pain or discomfort. If it starts to crunch or pop or hurt when you're doing that, you might not be able to open your jaw wide enough, and there might be tension somewhere. And that tension can originate in many places and actually can also have many origins. For instance, some people had an injury to their jaw. Think of, sports injuries when you maybe got a ball in your face or an elbow check or something like that, and something hit you here or on your jaw and maybe even dislocated your jaw. So it's very likely that you will have problems afterwards and that your jaw might not feel the way it did beforehand. Then, habits like grinding teeth, like chewing gum a lot. You might be actually surprised about that, but really true. Chewing on pencils, that type of stuff. So if you're constantly clenching and biting down repeatedly, that's not the same as being quite loose about it. And people think, when I'm chewing gum, it is quite loose, isn't it? But the problem about, for instance, chewing gum, and also certain eating habits, for instance, is that a lot of people tend to chew on one side, and that's where the problems originate. So it's basically an imbalance that causes the problem. It can also be down to misalignment of your teeth, and that's why I always say it's so important to see your dentist if you feel anything is just remotely out of whack. But it can also be down to the facts that you generally have bad posture, for instance. So it does not need to originate in the muscles of your face or in your temporomandibular joint, for instance, or underneath your chin. It sometimes can actually originate in your neck, for instance. So you see that a lot in people who slouch, do this. And then they start to jut their chin forward. And what a lot of people do when they're doing that, they also start to bite down, for instance. A very easy sort of trick you can do to find out if there's a bit of tension, for instance. How is your resting position? And when you're just sitting and breathing normally, what does your jaw feel like? Are you biting down? So is there tension, especially between your molars? Or do you feel it's quite loose? It's almost a bit like, And also, where does your tongue rest? So for instance, your tongue in its resting position when you're just breathing through your nose usually should be at the roof of your mouth. Because if your tongue is at the roof of your mouth, you're not biting down or anything. You're not clenching your jaw. If the tongue is at the bottom, it sometimes can happen that you're actually almost like pushing down with your tongue a tiny bit. That still keeps the jaw open, but it's not a relaxed position, and it can sometimes create tension in this area here, for instance, in those muscles here. And all of these things can lead to jaw tension. So the question is, how do you remedy it as a singer? What you would want to do first of all, and what I always advise everyone to do, is check your posture. Make sure that you feel you're literally lifting yourself up a tiny bit from the top of your head. Then actually do a little exercise. Have the tongue resting at the roof of your mouth, and just keep the jaw quite loose while you're doing that. And then maybe put 2 fingers on your chin. Have the tongue still at the roof of your mouth, and try to open your jaw while you keep your tongue in place. So that's actually a very good and very simple exercise to combine your head-neck alignment, watching out for that, with a fairly loose sort of hanging of the jaw. You can, of course, do other things. If you feel particularly tense, needless to say, you can always see a physio about these things. But there's little things you can do yourself. Makes sense to say, again, don't work against any resistance, don't work over your pain threshold. It's quite funny that we sometimes need to say these things, but it's really, really important. So what you could start with is basically just put 2 fingers right next to your earlobes, and then just open and close your jaw. You can do this with an open and closed mouth. And what you should be feeling is this opening and closing sensation. It's almost like a little hole appearing when that joint starts to work, essentially. And when you're doing that, watch out for any sort of popping, clicking, painful sensations, obviously. So that's the first thing. Then the next thing is you can do a massage from there. So you look for your chewing muscles, the masseter, for instance, one of those. I mean, there's more, but we're talking about the ones here at the side of your face now. So essentially what you're doing is, first of all, bite down. So you actually feel them sort of popping out a tiny bit when you're doing that. So you know where the muscle actually sits. And then you just massage that muscle a tiny bit. And especially if you feel resistance or tightness or tenderness or something, needless to say, again, be careful with it, but then stay with that a tiny bit longer. You can also do it in this direction. So against the way the muscle fibers run, essentially. It's usually a tiny bit more uncomfortable. Or you can put your fingers under your chin. Just get your thumbs in. and massage a tiny bit there. We're talking about different muscles here. So jaw tension is not just related to any one thing. For some people, it has its origin in the temporomandibular joint. For some people, it can actually be related to tongue tension of sorts, or as I said before, tension in the muscles under your chin, on the side and back of your neck, for instance. So it's always a good idea to have a look into all of these, but especially also to look into your posture. Sometimes you get the advice that moving the jaw will solve the problem, which is true to an extent, but that already depends on how bad your problems are. Because if you have really severe problems and then you do some of these exercises that some people recommend and that you also find online, just really like chewing a lot and all of that type of stuff, that might actually cause you severe discomfort and make things worse. So if you feel that just simple things like chewing motions with an open or closed mouth are already really painful, then I would actually steer clear of those and look into maybe a bit of massage first and see someone about it. But if you feel it's just a tiny bit of tension, what you can naturally do is incorporate them into your practice routine. So you could, for instance, let's say you're humming a scale to warm up. You could do that one by staying really loose and then doing little chewing motions with a closed mouth. Stuff like that. You can obviously also do that with a hanging jaw and a more open vowel sound. So you could do something like stuff like that, for instance, to just stay loose. But I think that's actually a better way of working for people who just want to make sure that they don't get into a bad habit or they maybe feel ever so slightly tense on any given day. If you feel there's more to it, I would say really see someone about it. That's really, really important. So once again, my recommendation for you, if you feel there's something going on with my jaw and I can't really open my mouth in the way I would like to, because obviously the jaw is part of all your articulators. You have your jaw, your tongue, your lips, and all of that is connected. So if one of these things doesn't work right or is tense, you usually get some sort of domino effect, and that the other bits try to compensate and then they start to get tense as well. So it's always good to have a look into that if you feel there are issues. But as I said, for you, a quick recap. See first if you can open your mouth at least 2 to 3 fingers wide. Any more than 3 fingers is not really necessary. I mean, one could argue that even more than 2 fingers is not necessary or whatever, but I personally do feel that if you can do this without a sensation of massive tension, as if you're really opening your jaw against a massive resistance, you're fine. 2 fingers is still sort of okay. Any less than 2 fingers, usually you would probably need to look into that. Also then, first of all, again, going into the recap, have a look into your posture. Don't know if you're texting a lot or if you're looking a lot at your mobile phone, you might have text neck. So it's this sort of like slumping, chin forward, tension starts to come in here. So watch out for that. Straighten yourself up, make sure your alignment is good, and then you take it from there. And then you can do all these little massages and everything that I showed you. So I hope that helps a tiny bit. And if you have any question, put them in the comment section and I'll hopefully see you the next time. Bye bye.